What do you think Internet Week has meant to the New York tech community?
I think it's meant a lot because I think there's this belief that if you're going to start and scale an internet company, you have to be in San Francisco or somewhere around Silicon Valley. So I think to highlight all of the great, thriving digital media companies that are in New York in 1 week really focuses people's attention on the fact that you can start a successful digital media company right here in New York City.
Where do you see entrepreneurs and startups needing the most amount of help right now? Where do they need assistance?
So I think in New York it comes down to two things. One, and this is something that this city I think is going to work on, it's very hard to find real estate in New York when you're starting. You may have 2 founders, you may have 5 founders, you may have 10 people, but a lot of the buildings in New York are zoned for larger companies. For example, a whole floor, at a building in Midtown. So if there are ways that this city can just make it easier to rent smaller spaces for emerging companies, that's going to solve a big problem for entrepreneurs. Secondly, the engineering talent, which is I'm sure something you're hearing about a lot, but there's no Stanford for New York City right now. There is no, NYU has a program that's emerging, which is good, but it's pretty small. So there's not that one place where you have hundreds of really talented engineers coming out of a school who want to get some equity in a company and have the opportunity to make a lot of money. So I think having a closer connection between the universities and the startup community in New York would be helpful. I think that really making an effort to boost up engineering programs at universities in New York is also really important. And then I'll actually add a third component, and that is that there is this belief in San Francisco that if you're really, really smart, you're going to be at a startup. Because you may become a multimillionaire like a Mark Zuckerberg or a Peter Thiel or someone like that. In New York, for a long time, the belief has been that if you're very smart, you're going to have a big brand name behind you, like an NBC or an MTV. So I think the more we can shine the spotlight, as you're doing, on successful entrepreneurs and successful digital media companies, so younger people who are really talented graduating from college want to go to a startup rather than to a big company, that's going to make a really big difference.
Let's talk for a moment about the role of venture capital. A lot of entrepreneurs seem to be very focused on raising money and the difficulties of raising money, but are they over-focused on it?
No, look, in order to get your company going, at some point, you're going to need money if you want to go full-time. And I do believe that going full-time is a game changer. I can tell you from personal experience with Blip.tv, we bootstrapped it for our first year, and my 4 co-founders had spent 6 years before that just working nights and weekends building the platform. But at the point that we were ready to really see if we had built something, we had to go full-time. And in order to go full-time, if you're not independently wealthy, you need to have some funding. You don't need a lot of funding. We didn't raise a lot of money at all when we first started, but you need about a year of funding. So yes, you need investors. Now, early stage, you're usually going to go to angels, and then after that, you'll go to venture capitalists. But I do think that one of the bottlenecks you face in New York right now is that there are not enough VCs. We have SoftBank here, they're great. We have Greycroft here, they're great. We have Canaan Partners, we have a few. But there's not a lot. It's not like San Francisco where you could just rattle off dozens of names of good venture capital firms. So we, for example, at Blip, we raised money from Bain Capital, which is in Boston, but also has a presence in New York. I think what will be helpful is to have a set of entrepreneurs who are really successful from this time period, who then in a few years start their own venture capital firms or their own angel firms and build up their reputation. So I think in 10 years, it'll be a lot easier.